Yeah, it's great. And we're live. Isaiah, how you doing, my friend?
Good, good. It's been a while. I feel like a lot has changed since we last. We haven't talked since the letter, the or
The
the.
letter. The letter. Yeah. That's funny, man. I was talking to Eric Irway and he called it the letter. He said that's how they refer to it as Adobe, is the
That's
letter.
why I called it back because I listened to
Oh,
your
okay. So you
episode.
saw that. Okay, yeah. And yeah, that was hilarious. So what are your thoughts on all that stuff, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm definitely. I'll be honest. I'm skeptical. I'm not like super. I guess
I think
optimistic that.
for
Yeah.
I think for business oriented people, it's like, dude, like you're working day to day, you're trying to get, you're trying to like, you're landing deals. Like you have a practical perspective of like, I need to send something to clients that they're going to have confidence in. Like you're
Exactly.
not going to, like, you're not like, that seems to be the perspective.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I'll give you an example. Like, so, I mean, well, one for us, Magento has become more of a B2B focused tool,
Right.
and B2B companies are inherently risk averse, right? Like, these are like family
Right.
run companies generally, not always, but like a lot of them are like kind of that
Totally.
family
The
succession.
opposite of the
Yeah,
opposite of like a startup or like a new D2C brand, like the polar
yeah.
opposite. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like you can't also it's hard to move fast because they're so like complex and everything
Yeah.
they do is just takes longer. So to move to something that is like this kind of like we don't really know what's going to happen roadmap
Yeah.
is not like super appealing to me or that customer base.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see that
I
for sure.
mean, yeah, another example is like we've looked at like all the cool new stuff and everything, and occasionally sometimes we'll use it for certain use cases. But more and more
Yeah.
again with our B2B clients, we're just like, all right, we're going to use Luma. We're going to base it off Luma because it's like super risk averse and
Yeah.
it works with all the apps and extensions and
Yeah.
like it just works.
I
You
think
know?
I think you're B2B focused. I think you're killing it. I mean, because you have the podcast, you're focused on Magento for the B2B use case, which is like the most clear cut use case for
Yeah.
Magento these days. So I think that's the way to go.
Well,
You
it's
know.
honestly hard to sell Magento for B2C in the sense that like you have Shopify, which is like a super compelling B2C option. And then
Yeah.
you have like BigCommerce, which is kind of an interesting mix. Like we see them kind of in between Shopify and Magento. And then
Yeah.
like on the upper end, you have Salesforce Commerce Cloud, which is a very compelling B2C product for like larger B2C merchants. So it's like you have to get this like
Gotcha.
very specific kind of B2C merchant that fits the Magento mold.
Right.
And that's like kind of hard
Right.
to find. And
Right.
it's they exist and we do have some, but it's not like
Yeah.
not common enough for us that we're like going after that, right? If that makes sense.
See, it's like the exception, not the rule for the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There might be a
That makes sense.
hybrid. So where there might be some is they might be B2C, B2B, and then it's like, okay, Magento's a good fit for that because it can kind of do both.
Gotcha. That feels like a good webinar. Like how to use Magento for your B2B, B2C combo clients, you know?
I think I wrote a lot.
Um,
I think there's like a blog post on Magento on that I wrote
right.
about that from like 5 years
Okay.
ago.
Nice.
But once in a while they'll promote it like on a tweet or something, you know what I mean? We're like
Yeah.
it's like the
Yeah.
old post that comes up.
I love it. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know, man. On the whole letter thing, I've talked about it so much. I'm still interested in it. I still think it's cool, but I don't know. I think some people are just done with it. They're like, all right, let's see where this thing goes, and it's like whatever.
It's not like I want them to fail. Like I don't like
Totally.
I guess this is maybe a sad take, but like I guess I just don't care that much in the sense that like it's like all right, we'll see what happens and like I'm doing what's best for my business, right? And like at
Yeah.
this point,
Yeah.
it's too early for me to do anything about it, right? Because I don't know
Yeah.
what it's going to be.
Totally.
But
And I mean, even what Willem has said is like, listen, we don't expect people to have confidence in it. We're going to maybe we plug away for 2 years. They use it for their own use cases, their own merchants that are already a fit for them.
yeah,
And then 2 years down the road, maybe you evaluate it for something that makes sense and you go, oh, look, they actually have a track record. So I think I think that everybody's kind of on the same page there, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's talk
Um,
about what we do care about. How about, sorry.
let's do that. That's a good idea. And it's not that I don't know. I go in and out of, and I think everybody goes in and out of kind of caring and not caring about it. But what's top of mind for you these days, man?
Top of mind for me. I mean, I think I look at things at like a bigger kind of the overall ecosystem of e-commerce, and to me, Magento is a big part of that, and it kind of like paved the way. And I think we're in this interesting period where like it's still a big player, but then you have Shopify, which is just like eating up a ton of market share. And I think BigCommerce is kind of becoming more interesting. They've been launching new stuff that makes them more interesting. So we're kind of in this like interesting period where I feel like there's a lot of decent options. Like there's a solid maybe 5 to 10 good options in the market. And then you have like the whole headless option, which I think there's a lot of misinformation around when you should go headless, to be honest. So we've been very strategic about how we talk about it and when we think it's a fit for clients. So there's that whole thing too, which could also work with Magento. So it's like, is it Magento or is it headless or is it both? Like, it's almost like two different things when you go like that's kind of how I explain to the customers. I'm like, if you go headless, you're basically going like half custom because you know, it's still so new. You could maybe use like Shogun front end or one of these things, but like you're going to end up doing a lot of development. You're not like built into the front end anymore. So like the apps don't work out of the box. You have to like hook up the apps like there's no
I was looking at Shogun front end maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago or something like that. How's that coming along? Because that's kind of an interesting approach.
Yeah, I think we're just kind of exploring all the options for headless. It's still kind of early, frankly.
Is it like Shogun front end? Is it available for everybody, or is it like
it's
still
available.
beta invite? Oh, okay,
I think it's available for anybody to use, but it's the same barrier. Like you still have to build a headless website, so you get to use their
build a whole bunch of stuff
tool and some of their tools to kind of speed that along. But like, the problem I see is you have to pay for their tool, and you still have to pay for like a Shopify or whatever the backend is, and then you still have to like build the whole site and deal with the fact that it's headless, which is like a decent barrier to entry. You know, like it's not something your average, especially Shopify merchant, is like ready to jump into. In my opinion.
Yeah. It's just a lot of moving parts.
Exactly. Now you have like
because what's that?
You have a whole nother like tech stack layer. That most of these merchants don't even really understand what it is.
Yeah. Because the whole like value of Shogun is like that you can, the initial, the regular Shogun product is that you can just content management, drag and drop, real easy to edit, type of thing. And so in theory, if you had a headless version of that, it would be great, but it sort
of is that, but you still have to like build a lot of the things yourself. Like it does offer drag and drop stuff, but like it's still quite a bit of development involved. Also it's a little bit of the chicken or the egg. Like frankly, we haven't built the site yet, so we haven't used it because we just haven't found the use case where we were confident it made the right sense, or no one's like said they want it. Like it's always hard to sell something new like that, right? And so we haven't used it. So maybe it's easier than I think, right? Like, but it's like until I do it like full on, you just never know, and that's a risk for us, right? Because we have to estimate, we get held to our estimates. And customers are going to hold our feet to the fire if we fuck up an estimate. Like, sorry, I don't know the language on the show. I don't want to get in trouble.
No, go nuts. No, man, feel free. Feel free. Go nuts.
The Boston, I can't help myself. But, if we mess up an estimate, like, we're kind of toast, right? Like, we can, it's really bad for us.
No, and it's interesting how, like, things, I've been thinking about this just generally, like how things progress and how like, even if something is out there, some tool exists, and it's great, people are going to learn about it at some uneven rate, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it takes time for things to get out there and for people to go, oh, maybe I'll look at it. And then they finally look at it. And then, it's just weird how things just, they just take time.
Well, that's
Um,
the thing. It just takes, yeah, and it's a lot harder than I think people realize to like to have a new platform take over. Like I think people really underestimate that, especially in e-commerce, which is
yeah.
why we're pretty focused on Shopify, BigCommerce, and Magento because like they all have a solid user base, they have momentum, they have money, they're trusted
And
brands.
there's
Yeah,
all these platforms that are trying to like take out Shopify that are like
it's
headless
not gonna
first or
happen.
whatever, and they're like, and it's like they're like, oh yeah, Shopify sucks because it's monolithic and blah 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 blah, and then and like you're saying, it's impossible because you got the whole ecosystem around it, you got the
Yeah.
apps, you got everything, and it's
Yeah,
like,
tell that to like the $100 billion going through the platform, or like some ridiculous. Every year, it's like some new ridiculous number, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think I read like an interesting, like it was like some well-known VC, and he's like to kind of get like to disrupt like a platform, let's say like a Salesforce or something like that. You literally have to be 10x better than that
right,
platform. Like you
yeah,
have to be that so much better that it's like you okay now we're going to move to it because we're literally so much better that like we'll take the risk on this new thing. And I think
yeah,
that
totally,
these companies are making is they're not 10x better. Like yeah, you're headless or whatever, but like you don't have the app ecosystem or you don't have the
yeah,
theme marketplace or you know what I mean. Like there's all these flaws that they have that just doesn't make it 10x better.
yeah.
So it's like 1.2x better, 1.5x better. It's just not enough to take the
It's
risk.
not enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Are you playing around with any product ideas? I think I remember we talked about that at some point
Yeah,
in the
yeah, we've
past.
got quite a few things in the works. We're kind of an
Weren't you
interesting
building
place.
like a headless type of a
Yeah,
thing or
we
something like
do.
that?
It's kind of in what's the word for it? Like the silent or what is that?
Oh, stealth
Stealth
mode.
mode.
Okay, all right. I don't want to pry. I don't want to
But
pry.
no, no,
Yeah,
no, it's okay. I can tell you a little bit about it. Basically, our thesis was there is a room for like the headless platform. People I think are going around it about it kind of the wrong way. So we're actually focused on it from more of a design perspective. So that's about what I can say is we use it on two projects successfully, and we actually did all the designs headless, presented them
cool.
headless. The clients approved them headless, and one of the sites is live, the other is about to go live. So it's like we proved that it worked. The design team liked it, although it wasn't quite no code. Like that's kind of the thing. We're still like it's a pretty monumental task, and we don't have like funding for it. So like it's self
Yeah,
funded. So it's kind of
that's
at this
cool.
point it's kind of like an internal design tool. We're trying to get more
Nice.
into modern UX, which is like we believe more code like browser experiences and not like the old school. Well, it's funny to say old school because Figma is like a new tool, but like right now design is stuck in this like flat file. So everyone spends like a ton of money and delivers you literally a picture of what the website's going to be, which
Yeah,
is kind of a
yeah,
silly thing when you think about it because you're like, okay, like this picture looks cool, but like it's not the website and it's not how it's going to interact in the browser. Like you're kind of like building like almost like a model, like a toy model of a building. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's how
yeah,
everyone's designing websites. And
yeah,
then you have to build it all and throw everything away. So we're trying to kind of reinvent that. And
yeah.
it's pretty hard. We've made some pretty good progress, but
It's
it's pretty
tricky.
hard. There's a reason
I
no
thought
one's
that
fixed that problem because it's not an easy problem to solve, you
it's a
know.
tricky problem. I
And
thought I
without
haven't
funding, well, I'm
without
funding
funding.
it basically. So you
Yeah,
know, I put some decent money into it. So I hope it I hope it works
yeah,
out.
yeah. I thought that Figma. I haven't really used Figma, but I just assumed it was like browser based.
Well, it's
That it
browser
just
based, but it's basically just a picture.
but it
Like it's
generates it. Like I thought it generated like like HTML mockups and stuff like, but I guess not. I haven't really.
not really. I mean, they have like some things that kind of like move it in that direction, but you couldn't use the code. Like it wouldn't really make sense. And it's
Right,
still like
right.
actual code. Yeah, it's there's a lot of things that you end up having to do manually, and when you start building large scale designs, like we've tried to it starts like we've like broke Figma because we built the design that's like so big and has so many
Mm,
pieces that it like
mm.
can't load all the things that it'll take like 5 minutes to load because there's just like so many screens
Too
and
many
like
pages.
yeah it's just
That's
like
funny.
not yeah so that it our vision is that it will push the headless direction faster, but this is like a very long term. We'll see. I mean, it's going to take a while. Unless
Yeah.
someone wants to give us like, someone give us like $100 million, we'll speed it up. If any takers
Hey,
out there.
whoever's out there, go for it. It
We'll
seems
take
like
10 million. We'll take 10 million.
10. Make it easy. Make it easy on you. It seems. I mean, they say it's like easy to get money these days. I don't know. I've never raised money or anything like that.
Yeah, we probably could raise money, but then you start to get in the whole like I've thought it's complicated, right? Because then I'd have to like probably spend.
You'd have to
time
do it
on
full
that.
time.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
have to move on to that full time, and then I have to like get a new CEO at Trellis, which I probably could. Also, the product's not quite there, so like then you have all the pressure of VC money being like, or like I
Yeah.
have kind of a friend slash mentor that pivoted his agency or sold his agency, and he's very successfully doing VC backed business now. And he's like, the one advice I would give you is like get a little further before you take the VC money, because like it's not fun when they're like on your ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Because basically you have a boss. I mean,
Yeah,
not exactly a boss, but for all intents and purposes, a boss. And
exactly. Yeah.
versus being independent,
Yeah,
it's
so we're kind of slowly chugging along, and once we have kind of a few more KPIs that we're like, all right, there's something here that's like, now it makes sense to just like go all in on this thing. We'll probably, do something like that.
go all in. That's cool. And the B2B stuff, are you having fun with that? Or is any cool
Yeah, I mean,
stuff you're
I
building
think,
there?
yeah, the B2B stuff is super interesting to me. I'd say it's a mix. I have like mixed emotions about it. I'm having fun with it, and like I'm learning a lot on the podcast. I'm constantly talking to like really smart people.
That's really
And
smart. Yeah.
yeah, and that's honestly one of the biggest values is I feel like by doing the podcast, I became like triple the expert that I was before
Totally.
the podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
what's
yeah.
frustrating to me about B2B e-commerce is it to me still feels like it's moving so slow.
Super
And I'm just
slow.
like,
Yeah.
like I'm in like so many sales cycles, and they're just like so slow. It takes them
Yeah.
like a year to decide on the platform, and then they make like a stupid decision. Like we had one where like they decided they're going to do something in-house that we could do for them, and I'm like, there's just no way. Like I know how hard it was for us to build it, and we're like a friggin' tech company with like 80 people and 50 engineers, and they're like an old school distributor with like one engineer. I'm like,
Yeah, you're like,
so frustrating, because like in three
yeah,
years we'll probably talk to them and they'll be like, oh yeah, like kind of didn't really work, like maybe you guys can help us.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
That
have
sounds
a
like
I'll give you an example. I have a former customer who's no longer a customer, arguably one of the worst experiences we had in B2B. There's a reason it didn't work out, right? And they had bought Magento before they had worked with us with a previous agency, and I don't even know all the story there. That failed for whatever reason. Well, I kind of know the reason, but anyways, that failed. They came to us. They just want so much. They don't get it, right? They want like more than what they can afford, and they keep pushing you.
yeah,
Like, they think by just like pushing us and yelling at us and telling us that everything we're doing is wrong, that somehow we're gonna like do it faster and better, and not like
yeah,
there's just a certain math where it's like you can't. It is what it is. It's gonna cost a lot of money, like if you want to do complicated
yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah,
And they
yeah.
left us after we probably did like a good chunk of work, and then they've been with a new agency for like another year and a half, and they still haven't gone live. So we're talking like 3-4 years of them
It's crazy how
basically have nothing to show for their investment.
it's so crazy, dude.
Like if I was the CEO, I would come in and be like, all right, cut out half the features, go live in like a month, and it would be like fine.
Yeah.
Like
I
you
know,
know what I
it's
mean?
insane. And that's part of what those like older school businesses don't have is just the kind of the bias for action in terms of tech. Cause
Yes.
like you kind of just gotta at some point just push something out there, start pushing some pixels. Cause like I
Exactly. Like,
think
it's so
like
focused on like getting it right, where it's like you don't know what it's going to
yeah,
be right. Just get it out there, get something
it's
decent, and then make it better later.
yeah,
Like
it's kind of the nature of tech. Like it's the nature of tech and websites versus like if you're used to manufacturing something,
you can't do that. Yeah.
you can't do that. You do have to more so get all your T's crossed, all your I's dotted, and then send it across the sea, have them, so I think it's just a different mindset.
Yeah, so I think the B2B company, exactly, like there's two problems here. I'll give you the two examples. There's that, and they're used to this like behind the scenes, perfect everything, white glove service. So the website has to be like that. I guess there's three things. Two, they think when they launch the website, everyone's going to start using it, which is not true. Like, it's not like you just launch a new website and like all your customers are like, you know what, we're just going to stop calling you. We're going to just like, that's actually what doesn't happen. The hard part is getting them to use it.
Yeah.
Three, they come from a mindset of like, kind of like, honestly, penny pinching. And that's how they got to where they are, is like, they squeezed every vendor and got like the best deal on distribution. And that's how they built up their little business or whatever, mid-sized business. You can't really do that with tech. You can't squeeze your engineers. They're just going to quit.
Exactly.
It's the opposite. Like, you need to pay them well so that they're happy and that they do good work. Like, you're the engineering happiness guy. Like you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they're like, their mindset is like the antithesis of that.
And I think that's maybe just like a supply and demand thing, in the sense that there's an undersupply of developers. So you can't do that squeezing thing that you did with when you were building a product and you needed somebody to supply you bolts and supply you plastic, or like maybe there was commodities. Yeah, exactly. Then that was the strategy that made sense, was to squeeze every vendor. Or like, if I'm trying to buy a car, I'll email 10 different dealers. I'll figure out which car I want and just email 10 different dealers and be like, what's the best price you can give me on this car? and it works well. But yeah, like if you're talking about developers, because there's an undersupply, it just doesn't work, Yeah,
they don't realize that, like, so I'll give you us as an example, right? We have a couple deals in the pipeline that if they close, they would book up all of our extra resources and hiring for the next like 6 months. So if we close a few deals, all of a sudden we're like super booked, and we don't need to like take shit from some shitty little B2B company that's trying to squeeze us.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Because we're in such high demand, right? Like, we do good work, and there's a high value for good engineers and good process, and that it's hard to find them.
Totally. Whereas if there was 10 times as many good developers and good development agencies, it would change. But there just isn't. It's like it's.
And let me tell you, the problem is going to get worse. So my advice for any B2B company is like, now is the time to lock up your resources, because if you don't do it now, in 2 years, in a year, they're going to be so bid up, and you're going to have even a harder time finding them, I think. It's my perspective.
That's an interesting one. I sometimes think like what's going to happen. Like there's a lot of training content for developers and stuff these days. It's pretty good, and there is a focus on trying to sort of create more developers, but it's there's more no code tools and stuff like that. But it's hard to imagine a future where like there's an oversupply of developers. I mean, I'm sure
I don't see it happening.
Maybe 100 years from now.
Yeah, I don't see it happening for two reasons. One, tech is just moving so fast, and all companies are now even non-tech companies that are like historically non-tech companies now need engineers, right?
Now you're a tech company.
Yeah, like all the big banks and any big company is probably going to have like some level of engineering, and that's going to increase. Yeah. All the VC-backed companies need engineers. All the tech companies need engineers. All the agencies, and I just don't think those like no code / cheap resources to train people are going to be effective enough to like overcome that problem. Yeah. And like we've tried hiring those young people out of like those boot camps, and it's just like, trust me, throw them to Magento, see how that goes for you. Yeah. Like this monstrosity of a code base, and good luck.
Yeah, totally.
They're gonna do more damage than good probably for the first like 6 months.
Yeah, probably. Have you going back to the B2B thing? There was this B2B tool. I think it was called like Meet Sales or something like that. That the View Storefront guys, the guys that built View Storefront. I think they built a thing called Meet Sales, and it like basically it like worked on the problem of like phone orders, where like if me and you want to do a phone order, a B2B phone order, it just like it popped everything to an email. It just made it real. It integrated with the platform and made it real easy to use. Like, I was just curious if you looked at that at all, or.
I haven't looked at it. There's another tool. I have seen it. I think I know what you're talking about. There's another tool that's a company out of the US that's pretty big now. And they have like a pretty sophisticated software. It kind of like takes all your emails, takes all like the offline orders. I'm not sure about phone, to be honest. And it just kind of like funnels them into the ERP and kind of like automates that process. So there are, I think they're not the only ones doing that, but yeah, and that makes sense. Like, we actually do tell customers, like, go ahead, go get one of those tools, because we're not, like, your website's not going to instantly be 100% of your sales. So
yeah, because like you mentioned, so much of the B2B stuff moves so slowly, but that seemed like a nice, simple solution to like a very specific problem within B2B commerce that just was like, it seemed like a cool.
Well, I'll tell you something about that. And I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to give away anything. I'm not sure like what I'm allowed to say, but one of the largest Magento agencies in the world, the former owner works at that company now I think there's a reason for that.
Interesting. Interesting.
And I think he's doing pretty well. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a cool little little product.
So he exited his firm and did well there because he did the exit, and now he's at that new firm that's doing kind of what Me Sales does, and they have they're doing well. Yeah,
nice, man. So many acquisitions, dude, left and right. You probably get emails like.
Yeah,
you probably get emails like 3 times a day with acquisition offers.
Yeah, I would say like more like 3 times a week, 3-4 times a week, probably. Yeah. So we've come up with a new strategy where we just throw out a super ridiculous number. We're just like, all right, we'll do it.
$2 billion.
Yeah, not that. It's like almost realistic enough where like someone might do it.
Got it. It's just above real. It's just above realistic in the margin of like crazy.
Yeah, and we're like, that's a good idea. In a year from now, like they're probably going to be like, oh, that might have actually been a good deal for them because at the rate that we're growing and the demand in the market, like,
that's a good idea.
But yeah, we get a lot of those. But yeah, we see it as an advantage right now where a lot of obviously a lot of our competitors have gotten bought out. Seems like it kind of kills some of the kind of hands-on, like the white.
Some of the mojo.
Yeah, I think especially for like the smaller mid-market clients, like when you get bought up into like a big giant, holding company, like they only care, like they might pretend that they care about the small mid-sized business, but their business, they have so many people, they have to get the big, like they need the multi-million-dollar contracts to just like feed the beast, So that's kind of an advantage for us because we're really focused on the mid-market because we're like, our pitch is like, hey, look, we can do what the big guys can do. Like we have the talent and the size, but we actually like will keep you as a client.
We're focused here.
We actually want you as a client.
That's smart, man. That makes sense. I think it is an advantage. To be independent, because so many agencies are getting acquired. I mean, it's almost the exception now if you're not acquired. I mean,
yeah, especially at our size, like we're about 80 people now. Like, like that 50 person threshold, it's like everyone after 50 people is sold out. And I think the reason for that is services are tough, which here's my going back to why you need to invest in agencies. I'm going to try and figure out how to say this in like a succinct way because it's like that roundabout story.
I like it.
You know me and my roundabout stories, but
that's what we do here, man. Roundabout stories. That's all we do here.
What was my original point? All right, no, anyway. So, I think agencies get squeezed, right? Because it's so saturated. Anyone can start an agency. It's so competitive. And the founders get burnt out. And one thing that we've done really well, frankly, is just figure out how we have a fortunate, we have 4 of us, 4 owners. So because of that, we're able to balance and we all have different, very specific roles, which helps too. Yeah. Like one is our COO. He only does operations. One's our CTO. He's
Right.
like a million times better than I'll ever be at development. So he focuses on
Right.
development. One's only focused on sales and marketing, and then I'm kind of like kind of in between all of those things, just helping in all the areas.
Right.
Um, so that helps. But I think agencies get burnt out because clients just demand impossible things, right? Like they're just like, all right, it's October. I need a site up by like November 35th, or like, well, sorry, November 30th, end of the month. So,
35th.
yeah. December 5th. Yeah, summer day. We get those. And so agencies get caught trying to please clients on impossible deadlines.
Right.
Margins get squeezed. It just becomes a very difficult business to run. And
Yeah.
so, and especially also to scale and grow. And you have scaling challenges, you have cash flow challenges that come with scaling, and you have to bootstrap. So I think most of these agencies just get sold out. And like you said, the quality kind of goes down. And that's why, my roundabout answer is that businesses should take the time and really partner with the right agencies, because the cycle changes. The agency that maybe was good, that was 40 people, they get bought out, and then that same service you might not get.
Yeah.
So this developer demand is this ongoing problem. You see what I'm saying? Like that's part of the problem, I guess. That's what I'm kind of
Yeah.
getting.
I definitely agree. Your the level of quality you get can change over time with an individual agency or even with an individual developer. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
human beings, right? Like
You
you
might get burnt
change, you
out. Yeah.
might get burnt out, want different things, and then dealing with an agency, maybe you're working with a different person, a different team, more junior PM, blah 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 blah. There's like a million things, or like
Exactly.
you're saying, you get acquired, and then there's different management. It's like
Yeah. A lot of times with
it's
these acquisitions, a lot of people leave. A lot of people leave. I've noticed that. It's been very good for our hiring. I'll be honest.
yeah,
'Cause
yeah, yeah.
most of
I
our
know what you
hires
mean.
have been from people of the agencies that have been acquired in the last year.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about. I understand.
I'm not going to get any more detail than that, but
Yeah, that you don't get too much more detail. No,
I'm assuming it's helped your business a little bit too.
well, yeah, it's on, it's you get on both sides of it, sometimes, but yeah, it happens. I mean, people get post acquisition. It's hard to keep people as happy as they were before. It just is. I don't know. It's a strange thing. Like
I think it's
it's
also like the culture and the end goal has changed, right? Like you're working for this small agency, it's kind of cool, and you're like, hey, we're all part of this little thing, and then it's like now we're owned by this public company. Like, okay, so like,
yeah,
what is the end game there now? Okay, like it's like, all right, now I work for McDonald's corporate, right? Like,
yeah,
and then at that point, I feel like the employees are like, well, do I just care about the money or do I care about like my lifestyle? So then they kind of have to like rethink what they want, and that makes them kind of like question whether
yeah,
they should stay.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole developer happiness thing is a whole interesting thing. I mean, it's something that's kind of elusive to keep developers happy, and it changes over time, and you know, um, they
It's so important. It's so important though.
yeah. How do you do that, and how do you keep yourself like you said, you're one of the exceptions that hasn't gotten acquired. Like
Yeah,
how
hasn't
do
quit
you
yet.
yeah, yeah, you haven't thrown in the towel. You probably could, but like, how do you stay engaged and like interested and stuff?
That's a really good question, because you're right. Honestly, if I wanted to walk away and probably like basically retire off the equity that I've built, I probably could, right?
Yeah,
So, two things. I mean, one, I feel like I'm just getting started in the journey of like what we can be doing. Like, there's a lot of things that I see us doing that are getting more interesting to me, like building kind of mini products, building mini operational things that are kind of like almost like products, but we don't sell them, but they're like within the organization that are kind of unique. There's a lot of operational layers that we built that like when we hire new employees from even bigger firms, they're like, we've never seen anything this sophisticated before, which is kind of
that's
cool to
cool.
hear when like someone is like working for you and they're like impressed by that. So there's just a lot of like we put a lot of time into like forecasting and road mapping, and we have like an OKR model. So I feel like we
Oh,
barely
that's
tap
cool.
into that stuff. So to
Yeah.
me, that kind of keeps me motivated. Like, hey, we're still like years away from like things that I want to do, and then I stay busy with like some side stuff, like this kind of interesting design headless thing that is kind of an internal tool. Kind of keeps
Yeah.
me sane to have something like that going. So I try and
Yeah.
keep. I guess what I would say is I don't work like I don't believe in like burn yourself out, work 60 hours a week. I think if you're doing that, it's not sustainable. Unless
Yeah.
like I think that's fine if you just started out, right? Like if you're like
Yeah.
year one, year two, I'm
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
10. If I was year 10 working 60 hours a week,
You'd be in
like
trouble.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
no way. That's why those guys probably sell because they.
Yeah.
So I think you have to build the system so you don't need to do that, and the company doesn't die
Right.
if you like put in 40 or 35 hours. Like the company's still fine.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the OKRs if you I don't know if you want to dig into that at all, but
Yeah, we
what
do
are
them
the
by
ones that
department. I don't want to get too specific, but like, yeah, it's by
okay.
department, like design department, hire this person, or like it could be about hiring, could be about an operational thing in the department. It could be
Nice.
like develop a new skill set. It could be about training. It could be one of the big things we're focused on is reusability because we've developed so much stuff over 10 years and we feel like there's more we could be doing to kind of like we're going to try and either make some of it open source or make it like more reusable
Oh, that's cool.
across clients. Just when you have those common use cases where it's like, all right, this clearly is going to come up again, or
Nice.
that kind of
That's
stuff.
cool. I always forget what OKR stands for. It's basically like a KPI, but it's another.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't even remember what it stands for, honestly.
It's so funny.
I
It's
think
the
it's
weirdest acronym.
like
I always forget what it.
operational key objective or something. I don't know. I don't know what the
Yeah.
R is for.
Yeah. I'll have to
Result,
Google it.
maybe operational key result or something. Or I don't know.
Yeah.
This is where like our COO. This is why I'm not the COO because I don't know. I don't remember what
Yeah.
it is.
That's cool.
You can tell I'm
And
not the OKR guy. I'm not the
you're
one
not
that.
the OKR guy.
I'm
You're
not
the
the one
guy
that
that went. You're the guy that went. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's put those in
exactly.
place.
I come up with the ideas or I approve the ideas, but I did not. I'm not the one that implemented the OKR system.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I have another buddy with an agency that hired a COO, and he said it's amazing. Like all of a sudden, all the operations stuff is off his plate, and he can just
Oh
focus
my
on
god,
sales.
you
It's just a
can't
total.
be COO and CEO effectively. Like I was doing it for. So we had actually the backstory for us is we had actually bought out our COO. It was kind of like a falling out, and we mutually parted ways. And we couldn't like really afford to backfill him right away. So basically, I just like took it over, and I can do it. I did it well enough to kind of like improve cash flow, improve some basic stuff. But it was
Yeah.
pretty obvious to me. I was like, all right, I'm not going to be able to take this much further. Like this is like one, I didn't like doing it, so I wasn't motivated to do it that well. And two, like
Yeah.
you either put all your time into that, and then you lose some of the CEO stuff. So we got lucky and just we actually ended up merging slash kind of like buying our COO's Shopify agency, and then that's how he became our COO and one of the owners. And he was
Oh,
like,
okay.
all I
Cool.
want to do is operations. I was like, great, that
Nice.
sounds great. You're hired.
Nice. That's awesome.
Because he was the opposite. He was the CEO, but he didn't want to do like the sales and like he doesn't want to do this. Like he doesn't do podcasts. Like that's not really what he wants to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just finding the thing that you really love to do and focusing on that is like, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like it takes a while to figure that out, even though
It's really hard, and I'm still dealing with that. Like I'm starting to get to the point where I do more of what I want to do, but there's still times where I have like downtime and I need to do stuff that like, or I should be doing things that I'm like, this is like pretty boring, but I feel
yeah.
obligated to do it because, I want to do a good job for the company. Like, I think it's really hard to put yourself in a position where it's like 100%
Yeah.
you want to be doing, like, unless
Yeah.
you have like billions of dollars to like,
Yeah. And I find that sometimes I don't know exactly what it is, like, because I've had times where I could be like, okay, I can basically do the stuff I want to do, but then I'll be like, well, what do I want to do? You know, I'll focus on one thing and then I'll shift focus or whatever. Like it's, I don't know, man. It's like, I can never quite nail it down.
Yeah. I think
But
I'm sort of changed my opinion on it, that I think it's okay to kind of like not be, gung ho about everything all the time. Like, I think it's okay to kind of like take a step back and maybe have like, maybe not your like most effective day, especially, well, mainly when you're in our kind of position where it's like more of a thought leadership visionary position, right? Like, I think if you have kind of more of a specific job where you're a developer, it's probably not as easy to do that. But in our kind of role, I think it's okay to like step back and be like, all right, how do I like reorient myself around this to kind of make it more interesting?
yeah,
Maybe I'm just justifying it to myself, but that's how I feel about it at this point.
yeah, I don't know. I think people that really figure out what they're best at, what they like to do, and just hone in on it, like, it just, it's crazy what you can achieve if you just know what the hell you want to do and just do it, and there's,
I don't think it's that simple though. Here's my take. Like, let's say you want a podcast, but the chances are, like, you're obviously great at podcasting. Not everything about podcasting you want to do, right?
Exactly.
So, like,
exactly.
You have to edit the podcast. You have to promote so I'll give you an example. I like doing the podcast, but I hate like finding the snippets and then promoting them.
Yeah.
And I have to like get the right staff in place to do that for me.
Yeah.
So like I have to do it, and it's like that's like this one little piece of it that I'm like I haven't been able to outsource, right? Because like there's a million things going on. I can't budget for every little thing that I want to do, right? So
there's always these like there's these like transitionary phases where like you're finding something that you like to do, you're good at, but then there's always these things around it that just kind of like, and if those things are too distracting, then they can just pull you out of it, and then you can just be like, I'm done with this podcast, I don't want to edit, I'm done editing. But like if you can like if you can just power through, do the stuff you don't want to do, and hopefully like 80% of it you do want to do, and then get to a point where you can outsource some stuff. Then
exactly. You basically, exactly. You have to power through that 20, 30%, maybe even could be 50% if it's like, it depends where you're at, until you can afford to kind of bring in the resources to do those little things. And that's the challenging part though, right? And then you bring in a little bit of that, and then there's like a new thing that pops up, kind of like, and you're like, no.
Then there's then there's a new side project. Like my buddy, he like started a business, and then, it's doing well, and he's doing that full time. And he's like, well, I'm doing, he's like, my side project became my full-time project, so now I need a new side project. Like you always got to have some kind of a side project, I guess.
I think I've just come to the conclusion. I'm not, it's funny because like I care about money and I don't care about money. Like the only reason I care about making a lot of money is so that I can have the money to do all these ridiculous side projects.
That's cool.
Not to like actually like buy random shit, you know what I mean? So I think the only way that I can have enough of those things to like keep me interested, I just need to have like some insane amount of money to like go around and buy all these little things and like operate them or do
all sorts of crazy stuff.
A good example is like I would love to have the money to just go in and buy up all these like dying B2B companies and turn them around, because it's like painful for me to watch. Just like
that's kind of cool.
Man, it's so painful watching these B2B companies.
There probably is there an example of one you could talk about? Probably not, because these are all like
I do have an
clients.
example of one, but they're not a customer. It's my friend's business, my family friend, and his dad owns the business. They're even thinking about selling. I'm not going to get too specific because I don't want to give away who they are. And I want to say they're like, they're maybe worth like $5-10 million, like small distributor. I think they might have a basic, like some tiny manufacturing capabilities. Like just dad is just like, it's like a mini version of Succession. Have you seen the movie Succession or the show Succession?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're not that successful, but like hasn't changed the ERP in like 20 years, has no e-commerce, has like no strategy to grow the business. And he's just like stuck in that size. So they're like, might sell. It's like, I would love to be like, okay, I have $10 million, quickly go buy them, reinvigorate the business, get the son in a more
Modernize everything.
in a more exciting role. He'd be excited to do more shit.
Yeah.
Modernize it, and all of a sudden it's like a $50 million business, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have $10 million just like sitting in a vault.
Sitting in a
One day,
savings
one
account
day,
one day. Yeah. And then, the funny thing is, like, if you did that, like, you'd have like some of these crappy things you'd have to deal with. Like, you'd have to deal with
Oh yeah,
manufacturing equipment. Yeah. Warehouses and stuff. You'd be like, I don't want to deal with this. But,
well, that's why you
eventually
gotta get
you'd
bigger
figure it
and
out.
bigger, or you're like Mark Cuban and he has a guy for that, right? Like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
he's like sends his guy out to go deal with that. But you're right, like then you probably have
Sends
to
his
go
guy
like
out.
fly around. Like I don't really like flying. Probably have to fly around a lot.
Yeah.
I
You don't like flying. You just like to
don't
stay
know.
in your zone.
I'm no, it's more that I'm just like I just get nervous about it. Like I'm getting better. I need to fly more. Like I notice
Okay.
if I fly like enough times in a row, like the third time in a row, I'm like whatever. But like that
Yeah.
first time I haven't flown for 6 months, I'm like god damn it. Like hopefully we're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Like
I was,
windy, maybe raining.
yeah. I was talking to somebody. I think I was talking to somebody, and they were like not nervous at all about flying, like at all. Like it was totally, and it's if you look at the statistics, it's safer than driving. Da,
Oh
da, da.
yeah.
We all know that, but
You
like
know that. It
emotion,
doesn't make me feel any better when I'm like
yeah,
shaking in the air.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Like emotionally, I'm always like a little nervous about it, but not too much. But like I was talking to somebody, and they were just not at all, like zero negative emotions about it, and it's like it's weird how. And they were talking about how I think their parents were like afraid of heights, and like how some people are afraid of heights, some people are afraid of different things, and it's just weird how something that is so normal for you to be afraid of or worried about, anxious about, for another person, it's like nothing.
So
So
here's a good weird example of that. It's even very specific. I hate the part being in the air. Like for whatever reason, I feel like it's like so out of control. You're just like turbulence randomly, and it's like so long, and you're stuck in the seat. And
yeah.
then I'm like so happy when we're landing. Like I'm like, yes, like we're coming down, the end is here, like we're gonna be on the ground. And then my fiance, she like is not nervous at all being in the air, but she hates
uh,
landing. She hates the
okay.
landing because landing statistically is actually the most dangerous part.
That's the most dangerous part.
For
Yeah, yeah,
me,
yeah.
one of the most dangerous. For me, I'm like, oh, we've made it. Like whatever. Like even if we crash on the landing, I'll probably survive. Like
I'll be okay. I'll just jump out the window, roll
yeah,
out,
I'll just
slide
like
down the
buckle up.
wing. Yeah, that's so
But
funny.
she's like all scared, like when we're landing, and I'm like so excited. Like that's just a weird example of like how it
Yeah,
like flips in the
it's just different.
experience. And
Yeah,
whereas I'm like miserable for the 3 hours before the landing,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
she's
yeah,
like, enjoying her time, like reading a book.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's funny. It's funny how people are different.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Anything else you wanna share before we wrap up? Any links you wanna drop?
no,
Anything like
no, yeah.
that?
Once we start going off topic into like flying and like surviving airplanes, would probably it's probably a
Off
good
the
time
rails.
to wrap it up. But no, I mean, I guess I would say we're constantly innovating, constantly working on new stuff, and obviously any Shopify Magento stuff we're happy to help with in BigCommerce, and then on the B2B side, like I'm just perfectly open to talk to anyone about it, give them my advice. Like I like giving that advice, especially merchants that don't know what to do. Like to me, it's like obvious, right? That's why I get so frustrated. I'm like, all right, do these three things. Like just go do it.
Nice,
Like, I could have
nice,
like two conversations and probably figure out what they need to do, right?
nice, man. That's cool.
Getting them to listen to me is a whole nother challenge. But if someone wants
Dude.
free advice, I'm happy to do that. Once it gets more than like a few hours, then I might be like, all right, we got to work something out here. But
Yeah. Well, hey, man, people should take you up on that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll